Yun Yanli shook his head in disapproval. No, the heavenly laws can take hundreds of thousands of embodiments, not only the 4 men you saw. Gu Shijiao was obviously confused. Yun Yanli had to explain to her everything that he knew about it. According to the legend, the heavenly laws has created everything in the world. At the beginning of the universe, all beings knew nothing about good and evil. They coexisted, but fought in mutual slaughter, plunging the world into an abyss of misery. The world gradually became an evil place. Pestilence filled the world like an epidemic, turning it into a mess. The heavenly law had mercy on the world by creating an order, a rule for everything in the world to follow. Slowly, all 6 worlds were formed. The heavenly law will take many forms and linger in different bounds to experience different lives in order to improve the rules. Gu Shijiao was perplexed. Was the heavenly law the creator of the world? From what she knew, Pangu was the one who created the world by separating the sky from the earth. His body then dissolved to create everything in the world by forming the mountains and the rivers, including the flowers, plants and trees and even the animals. He made everything but human beings. Nuwa Empress added life by shaping the figurines by hand, thus creating the human civilization and societal institution. Some regarded the Nuwa Empress as the mother of life and the creator of the world. Was the Nuwa Empress the heavenly law? She could not be. Pangu was the one who created the world and added the primitive elements of life to it. Pangu was the emperor who presided over heaven. Nuwa Empress had only created a human civilization, but the legend stated that the heavenly law ruled heaven as well. Was Pangu the heavenly law then? Or perhaps, the heavenly law was only a law, which had nothing to do with Pangu or the Nuwa Empress. Gu Shijiao was still confused. She continued to discuss the topic with Yun Yanli. Those are only legends from the earth. There are hundreds of thousands of different worlds below heaven. The heavenly law has created an order for the 6 worlds, the divine kingdom, the celestial kingdom, the devil kingdom, the monster kingdom, hell, and the mortal world. The earth consists of mortal beings and a small number of monsters. Whereas heaven contains divine beings, celestial beings, devils, and even monsters. It is said that the divine beings are the most powerful ones. They carry out the heavenly laws and control between life and death among all beings of all kingdoms. The divine beings can live eternally and carry no mundane sentiments, implacable even among themselves. However, they are said to have disappeared, as they have immortalized in order to protect the 6 worlds. The celestial kingdom is now known as the Saha world, Yun Yanli explained patiently. He continued to talk with ease and confidence about the origin of the 6 worlds and the heavenly law. In the 6 worlds, each kingdom had its own ruler. The guardian of the celestial kingdom was the Emperor Immortal. The guardian of the devil kingdom was Emperor Devil. The monster kingdom was guarded and ruled by Monster King. All members of the 6 worlds worshipped the ultimate guardian of all beings, the Divine Lord. They also built the temple to constitute a formal expression of reverence for the heavenly law. The temple only existed in heaven, but all beings across the 6 worlds were obliged to follow the heavenly laws and order. As the prince of the celestial kingdom, Yun Yanli certainly knew many things. However, he had only heard about the legends, which were mostly very ancient. After his long explanation, Gu Shijiao finally grasped the concept. The heavenly law was a law made by the creator of the world who was an independent body. The heavenly law constituted the law and order for all 6 worlds. Occasionally, the creator would take different forms and embodiments to wander in different worlds. All beings had probably witnessed his embodiment before, only in different forms. Gu Shijiao recalled the voice in her head that proclaimed itself as the messenger of the heavenly law. She took another look at the firmament stone. It seemed like the messenger of the heavenly law as well, only of a lower rank. In fact, it did not sound quite the same as the unknown voice in her head. That one seemed to be more superior. It was a shame that she could not communicate with that voice right now. She had so many questions. According to Yun Yanli, the heavenly law was the ultimate order for all 6 worlds. No one was allowed to violate it. Respectively, the rulers had the power to punish anyone who had violated the terms, without requesting permission or going through the authority of the heavenly law. Nonetheless, she seemed to have violated the heavenly law many times, but she had not been severely punished yet. She could even negotiate the punishment. The heavenly law seemed quite approachable to Gu Shijio. Yun Yanli was obviously interested to become her trusted friend. Throughout their conversation he would answer, without reserve, anything that she did not understand. Yun Yanli had even gifted her with a glistening gold token. Whenever her presence was questioned by anyone in the Saha world, she only had to show the token for an immediate release. Also, Yun Yanli was indeed a good friend. Even though he failed to retrieve the golden ruler for himself, he did as promised and brought her to the celestial fruit party the next day. She managed to see more than 30 mighty immortals. All of them were full of spiritual energy and otherworldly aura. They also had awe-inspiring appearances, far transcending the others in beauty and elegance. However, she did not see the one that she wished to meet. She had even met the Emperor Immortal. He dressed entirely in purple and possessed a stern temperament. His appearance was equally attractive, but he was not the man. Unfortunately, her visit to the celestial fruit party bore no result. Time went by quickly. Gu Shijio had stayed for more than 6 months in heaven. She had been to almost everywhere in the Saha world by now. With Yun Yanli's help, she managed to see another 20 mighty immortals but found nothing. They all lived in very remote places. Each visit was very time-consuming. Gu Shijio did not want to leave a bad name behind in heaven, so she had been keeping a very low profile. She was not a very sociable person, so not many people knew about her. Neither would she get herself involved in any dramas or conflicts. She spent the past 6 months in the search for the man. When the time came, she had to return to Starry Crescent Land again with the help of the 5-colored bird. The ice and snow that had been raging the land finally melted away. Life finally began to flourish. The positive change was probably due to the change of her heart, for she no longer felt the shade of melancholy that had been settling in her heart. When she stepped into the Biwu Palace once again, she felt as though she was reborn. The 4 messengers had been greatly helpful. Even in her absence, they had been ruling the land very carefully. They required her presence only when they had to deal with very difficult situations that were beyond their capability. She led a rather idle life in Starry Crescent Land. She saw the books that were copied by the 4 messengers. Those were the books that talked about the cultivation of the Lord. A sudden inspiration occurred to her one day. She asked Mu Feng about the books. "Where did you copy the texts from?" Mu Feng was obviously taken by surprise. "My lord, you were the one who told us to copy the books, before you went into the Forbidden Land." Gu Shijio was confused. The content of the cultivation books was very profound. She had never even seen it before. How could she possibly tell them to copy something she did not even know of? "Where is the original text that you have copied from?" Mu Feng handed her a book of empty pages. "This is the one, my lord. It used to be filled with words when we started. When we were done, the book suddenly became empty. We do not even remember what we have copied." She could tell something was not right. Gu Shijio was too tired to think about it before, so she missed out the questionable points. Now that she thought about it seriously, many doubts started to surface. She looked at the empty books and decided to flip through one of the books. Suddenly, she had a dim recollection of a figure, sitting by the bed and writing a book attentively. By his side lay a companion. Chapter 1866. The one who was writing the book attentively was a man. Lying down by his side, hugging his leg tightly like a koala bear, was a woman. The woman seemed to have just been woken up from her sleep. She lounged comfortably and asked, "Why are you writing all these things again? I do not want you to do that." Quickly, she tried to take the book away from him, but her attempt failed. Her hand was helplessly pinned down. "Be a good girl. Behave." Then, he bent his head and planted a soft kiss on her forehead. "Be a good girl, will you? Do not say anything." The woman seemed unconvinced. "I refuse to. I will continue to distract you." She attempted to take the book away again. This time, he pinned her body down on the bed. He held her down with one hand while trying to keep his book with another. He then put her down on the bed and flirted. I see that you like to misbehave. I will now teach you a lesson. My lord? My lord? Mu Feng was concerned, seeing her lapsing into a light trance while holding the book. Gu Shijio recovered from her preoccupation and saw Mu Feng standing right in front of her. Where did the man and the woman come from? Like the images of her hallucination before, she still could not see their faces properly. Somehow, she had fallen prey to the strange, irrational sentiments that almost moved her to tears. She knew that she had lost part of her memory, so did Mu Feng and the other messengers. She did not feel anything wrong about the loss before, but now, the hallucinations changed her perception entirely. Her memory loss must be the key. Were the man and the woman representing the figures of herself and the previous lord? Her stay in the world was a short one, probably about 2 decades. Therefore, there must be another lord before she took over. Who was the previous lord? She asked everyone, but none of them knew anything about the former lord. Was the previous lord the one that she was intuitively trying to find? However, the flashback of her hallucinations clearly showed that the man and the women were madly in love. The woman seemed timid and lovable, like a little bird that rested upon her man. Gu Shijio touched her cheeks in sudden realization. She knew it well that she could never be the kind of woman who acted so timidly around her man. If she were truly in love, she would treat her other half with proper respect and concern. She would stand by him, like how she used to get along with Long Sai before. She could not imagine how she would look like, being all affectionate and dependent on a man. Frustrated by her loss of memory, she gave a light thump on her temple. She hated it when it happened to her. Did she hurt her head in the Buddha Fire Land? She could somehow tell that her memory was fine when she entered Buddha Fire Land. The loss only occurred after she left the place. She thought about it for a moment. Then, she proceeded to take out the skin of the Kuanping. The sight of the Kuanping struck her dumbfounded at once. She remembered that it used to be a fitted dress, but it had been completely torn apart in pieces. She walked in a circle with the skin of the Kuanping in her hand as she tried to recall something. An idea seemed ready to pop out, but she could not pinpoint exactly what it was about. She stood still as she quietly slipped into reverie. She tried to organize her thoughts. She was, after all, very smart. She put her recent flashbacks into place and tried to connect the dots. A bold conclusion could be made. When the Lord immortalized, everything about him had to be completely erased to get rid of his presence in the world, right? The more she thought about it, the more probable the idea became. She was somehow nervous and yet excited, for she finally had some clues about the mystery that had been troubling her for so long. She continued to trace the pieces and thought of another possibility. In that case, did the previous Lord immortalize and proceed to heaven already? Was he the cause of her obsession with heaven? Just as Long Fei was about to use the power of the ancient dragon body, he felt a hint of the dragon's aura. However, he wasn't shocked, but his eyes shone with even more excitement. The dragon race had been exterminated. There were no longer any dragons in the Dragon Vein Mountain of the Divine Space. The remaining Dragon Clan members who were hiding everywhere in the Divine Space, being chased and killed by the Xians, were basically on the edge of being exterminated. In order to protect himself and turn into a dog of the Emperor Xian, the current patriarch of the Dragon Clan, Long Wushan, had caused even the families of the Divine Space to mock him. The dragon race had become the laughingstock of the Divine Space. Everyone pushed against the wall. Previously, the Dragon Clan's camel was still bigger than a horse, but now, everyone wanted to step on it ruthlessly. If he met any Dragon Clan disciples, he wouldn't let them go. He could just kill one of them and go to Xian's to receive their rewards. Emperor Xian also said that ancient world did not need the existence of the dragon race. Emperor Xian was currently one of the most powerful powerhouse in the competition, so his words carried a lot of weight in the competition. If he said this, then wouldn't those Dragon Clan disciples be killed when they saw him? Pray for a phoenix to become a dragon? I want both the dragon and the phoenix. After killing the Dragon Clan disciples, I will be rewarded with the Xians, and then I will be able to obtain the spirit blood of the Phoenix Princess. My cultivation will be raised by leaps and bounds, and when I return to the divine space, I will be a 9th-ranked god. The black-clothed man excitedly stepped into the mountain gate. Who is it? Daring to enter the ancient antiquity? Do you have the order badge? 2 disciples who were guarding the mountain stopped the black-clothed man's path. The man in black sneered. In that instant, his figure moved, his shadow curling up. Kacha, Kacha. The instant his figure passed through the 2 disciples, the 2 disciples didn't even have time to react before falling to the ground. Their faces were deathly pale, without any signs of life. The black shadow man didn't even look at them. He did not use any of his strength. Seeing that, Fong Wanpeng immediately ran forward, his brows knitted, and thought, "This man's cultivation is too strong. I have to notify the great clan elder as soon as possible. If not, I am afraid that ancient antiquity will be able to." He didn't dare think about it. Those elite disciples of the king swordsman rank from before died miserably in the hands of the black-clothed man, the same way. This guy was simply not someone from the world of mortal world. With the appearance of the divine space's powerhouse, who could block it? Seeing that the black-clothed man had walked far away, Fong Wanpeng changed his direction and flew directly towards the inner door. The man in black did not stop him. He had already reached his destination, so he didn't care much about Fong Wanpeng. In his eyes, everything within the world of mortal world were ants. What he wanted was phoenix blood. He had already locked onto the phoenix blood aura and was approaching it step by step. As for those who tried to stop him, there was only one outcome. After the first round, there were only 18 disciples left out of 36 people. This time, Long Fei's side had half of the participants. The other 9 people all felt extremely pressured. If they were to lose after the second round, then only Long Fei and the rest remained. At that time, the competition would be entirely controlled by Long Fei. Let the second round of the martial competition begin. First round, Wu Huo will fight against Ma Tian. Disciples, please step forward. The second round of the martial arts competition began. Long Fei patted Wu Huo's shoulders and said, "His cultivation is higher than yours, but your talent is far stronger than his. Furthermore, the one you are afraid of right now is him. Don't feel burdened." Wu Huo nodded and said, "N." He strode towards the arena. At this moment, the space between Phoenix's eyebrows sank and her expression changed. Long Fei could not help but ask, "What happened to you? Your face is so ugly?" Phoenix shook her head and said, "I'm fine." "Is there something wrong?" Long Fei said. Phoenix quickly recovered her cute expression, giggled, and said, "Maybe I ate too much barbecue yesterday. My stomach was a bit uncomfortable. My darling, I'll go take care of it." Long Fei scratched Phoenix's nose and said, It's just that you don't understand how to take care of yourself. Hurry up and go." Phoenix nodded and replied. And then, Phoenix quickly left the square. The black-clothed man could sense her existence, and Phoenix could also sense his approach. It was just that, in the beginning, she did not put it to heart. It was only when the black-clothed man entered the ancient antiquity that she felt it, making her panic a little. Moreover, what kind of powerhouse was the black-clothed man? Someone who could kill her grandfather. If he found this place, the entire outer sect would probably die cleanly. The outer sect disciples didn't care. The most important person was Long Fei. She couldn't let anything happen to Long Fei. Wu Huo wins. Next match. After a few rounds, Wu Huo still won. He won with a psychological advantage. The talent of the 5-element fire placed an even greater pressure on every disciple. If it wasn't for this, wanting to win wouldn't have been so easy. Talent was talent after all. Talent can only mean that you have a potential that is even stronger than ordinary people. Before this potential is revealed, the cultivation realm will still explain everything. Wu Tu walked up the stage. Not long after, he won too. Long Fei was a little absent-minded. Why is the girl not back yet? Yun Shi looked at Long Fei and said, "It's just a stomachache. Look at how nervous you are." Long Fei shook her head and said, "Something is wrong. She must be hiding something from me." What kind of existence was a phoenix? She had diarrhea? Just kidding. Yunshi was startled and said, "How about this, I'll go look for them. You stay here and calm the scene, they can't do without you." Indeed. Long Fei was their backbone, and the moment he left, it would affect them greatly. Long Fei said, "All right, find her and come back as soon as possible." Yunshi said, "Don't worry." Yunshi quickly left. Long Fei was a little uneasy in his heart, and had a bad premonition. Wu Shui wins, next match. I won hee. The little girl jumped down. All 5 of them won the match. Next match. Bailey Tianhai against Zhong Qi. As soon as he finished, Bailey Tianhai became excited. "Finally, it's my turn." Long Fei's expression also tightened and said, "Tianhai, Zhong Qi's strength is not simple. He has always been concealing himself. You must be more careful." Bailey Tianhai said, "Big brother, don't worry. Even if I die today, I will let him die first." He had been waiting for this day for a long time. He didn't forget his grudge outside the South Heaven Gate for even a second. If it was not 10 times more, he would not be Bailey Tianhai. Bailey Tianhai walked up the stage, looked at Zhong Qi and said, "I have been waiting for this day for a long time." Zhong Qi sneered and said, "The last time I didn't kill you, I let you know what it means to feel despair. This time, I'll let you know what it means to feel despair again. Just you wait. Just wait for you to kneel in front of me and wail." Haha. Chapter 1868. Gu Shijio sealed her lips and refused to comment. The firmament stone continued, "Master, I can only tell you that you are indeed linked to the previous lord, but like what you have been told, he did not ascend to heaven. He is not among the mighty immortals. He has truly immortalized and will never come back again. If you keep on thinking about your past, you will never be able to move on. No matter what happened, let bygones be where they should be, in the past. Both of you were only destined to meet and fall in love once. When the relationship ended, it ended. You should look ahead." Gu Shijio stared at the leather suit blankly. She knew the firmament stone was right. She really should put her past behind and look forward to what lied ahead. However, she could feel a huge piece of the puzzle was missing from the picture, like a void that could never be filled. It was very depressing. She recollected the dream that she had in heaven. There was a voice that gave her a sense of direction. If she wished to find what she wanted, she had first to accomplish a mission. She decided to dismiss other thoughts and focus on the mission. Without further question, she used her spiritual power to put the shattered piece of the Kunpeng's skin into one again. She put it on and took a casual turn. The vivid blue dress was very light and soft. Most importantly, it fitted her perfectly. A conversation flashed before her eyes. "The dress is a perfect fit. You have not taken my measurements. How did you know my size?" "I am afraid that I know your body better than you do." Gu Shijio tried to focus on the conversation, but as usual, it faded away. The conversation sounded very intimate. Had they not any sexual interaction before? Gu Shijio shook her head to dismiss the thought. Intuitively, she did not wish to think about the matter. She should dismiss the thought and focus on the mission. She took another stroll in the Buddha Fireland. As a security measure in the blazing flames, she performed a fire trap spell to keep her safe. Gu Shijio realized that her memory about the place was intact. She could still remember the particular spot where the purple cloud mushroom grew. She returned to the spot again, but there was nothing. The muscle had completely swept everything away, leaving no traces of any mushroom behind. She circled the area as her intuition told her that a clue must have been hidden here. There were many flaming rocks around. Having found nothing, she was a little disappointed by the result. She heaved a long sigh and was finally ready to leave. However, a sudden flash occurred before her eyes. She could clearly see a white shadow sitting on one of the flaming rocks. There were some shattered pieces of golden fragments, glistening glamorously in the shadow's hand. The white shadow was only a faint image, so Gu Shijio could not tell its identity from its appearance. The white shadow could be seen staring blankly at the shattered fragments. Gu Shijio stood quietly as she watched the shadow's every movement with close attention from a distance. She was afraid that the shadow might be alarmed at the tiniest distraction and instantly disappear. The hallucination lasted longer this time. She wanted to observe it a little longer. The white shadow could be seen falling into a trance. A few moments later, he sighed and opened his palm. A box appeared, as dark as crimson. Gu Shijio was surprised at the sight of the box. The box that she saw in her dreams finally reappeared. The shadow rubbed the box thoughtfully for a moment. Suddenly, the box opened up, allowing the shadow to keep the fragments in it. Soon, the box was closed again. The white shadow put his palm on the cover of the box while mumbling some incantations. She did not know what the spell was about, but there was a faint glow of light slowly emerging. The figure then rose and hit forcibly on the rock that he sat on. The rock did not shatter right away. Instead, a hole appeared. He kept the box away in the hole and performed a spell to seal it. Gu Shijio watched in awe as the scene passed before her eyes. She took one step closer in order to recognize the shadow's face. One step later, the white shadow disappeared from sight. Gu Shijio stood her ground and heaved a sigh of relief. The hallucination lasted longer this time, about 4 minutes or so. Was this a sign of improvement? She took another step forward and realized something. It might be more than just a hallucination. Usually, there would be 2 characters in all the images that she had seen before. Although she could not see their faces clearly, she could almost tell that the woman must be a representation of herself. The hallucinations that she used to have were the events that she had gone through personally, the ones that had been unfortunately forgotten. This one, however, was different. There was only a shadow throughout the entire vision. The vision could be a real event, not just a hallucination. It could have been captured by some interactions of magnetic fields. Gu Shijio was aware of the possibility of such occurrences. When a storm raged in the past, some old houses would suddenly display the signs of the people who had previously lived in the house. By a strange combination of circumstances, the rare sighting was captured when the lightning hit the wall and accidentally recorded a small piece of the ongoing event. Under the same circumstances, the same sighting would be played again like a rewind. Was it happening here, for what she had just seen? Her heart started to throb anxiously. If the vision was true, the box could still be in the rock. Gu Shijio turned and stared fixedly at the huge rock from a distance. It was the rock that had been hit by the white shadow. Quickly, she took a huge leap towards the rock and paced around it, trying to find the correct angle. Once the spot was located, she started to split the rock open. The rock was far more solid than she thought it would be. She used an ordinary sword to split the rock, but it could not even cause a small crack on its surface. Gu Shijio tried using different weapons, but none of them worked. However, the golden ruler emerged from her storage bag eagerly, jostling for prominence. Gu Shijio felt a surging hope. Quickly, she got a grip of the ruler and aimed directly at the rock. Bang! There was a sound of a huge impact. The golden ruler bounced back, leaving the rock perfectly untouched. How could it be so solid? It seemed to be even tougher than a diamond. Gu Shijio frowned, obviously in disbelief. She saw it with her own eyes, how the white shadow split the rock open simply with a punch. Why didn't her weapons work? Was the white shadow's strength very much stronger than hers? In skepticism, she clenched the ruler tightly and tried once more. However, there was a sharp pain on her palm like she had just been bitten. She let go of her grip and found a bloody wound on her palm. It seemed like the ruler had cut her flesh open. Blood was oozing out from the wound and slowly dripped along the edge of the golden ruler. The golden ruler failed to cut the rock open. Instead, it slashed her flesh open. She tried to stop the bleeding, but something on the rock caught her attention. When her blood touched the surface of the rock, it did not evaporate despite the raging fire. Slowly, it continued to flow. She decided to keep her blood flowing. The blood flowed in an assigned pattern on the rock. Slowly, the rock presented itself in the shape of a box amidst the stirring blood. Gu Shijio was surprised. Without a second thought, she hit the rock again with her weapon along the path of her blood. It was rather easy this time, like cutting soft tofu. The rock was starting to take a boxy shape. Finally, she exerted her force for the last time. One side of the rock was cut open, revealing what was inside. Within it lay the crimson box. She could finally see the shape of the box. The box accentuated a unique, vintage design and looked heavy. On its cover, there was an emerald of lively luminosity. She finally found the box. Gu Shijio was relieved to know that her trip was not in vain. She put the box away in her storage bag. Another look at the rock reminded her of a phrase. Fate has brought the lovers together, with a love that lasts for an eternity. When the love comes to an unpalatable end, one's heart must be buried away, deeply in a sealed box. The box had indeed been buried here. Did it end up here because of a heartbreak? Gu Shijio pondered for a moment at the scene. The place was burning with extreme temperatures after the rock had been shattered. Now that Gu Shijio had found what she desired, she was reluctant to stay any longer. Swiftly she exited. She returned to her bedroom, sitting and studying the box attentively. The box was considerably light for her. She twisted and turned the box several times, but failed to figure out the opening mechanism. She shook the box to hear what was inside, but no sound was heard. She tried to recall the dream again. The man in her dream held a bracelet in his hand, while the man in her vision held a handful of shattered pieces instead. Did the bracelet become shattered? Was the box carrying the pieces of the bracelet? If there were pieces in the box, surely there would be noise, but she could not hear anything in it. Gu Shijio was an expert in unlocking different mechanisms. However, it was different this time. After hiding in her bedroom for a couple of weeks, she still could not find out a way to open the box. There did not seem to be an opening. She tried many different ways, even with the help of the golden ruler. The box remained uncut. She clearly saw that the white shadow had opened the box and put some pieces away in it. Why couldn't she open it now? She was circling the box, helplessly trying to figure a way. A voice suddenly spoke in her head. The box is a heavenly secret box. Only the destined one can open it. You should not waste any more time. Gu Shijio finally heard the voice again, from the messenger of the heavenly secret with a voice of indistinguishable gender. Who is the destined one? Gu Shijio was eager to find out. It is a quest for you to find out. The voice then continued, it is the only way. How does the person look like? Where should I start? What is the person's identity? Gu Shijio continued to bombard the messenger with a series of questions, but the voice was gone again, obviously refusing to answer her inquiries. Gu Shijio took a look at the box that had been bothering her for a while and decided to change the direction of her search. She should start looking for the destined one. The destined one should be the white man in her vision. Although she had not seen his face clearly, she could tell that the man was tall and possibly attractive. Moreover, he seemed like a powerful person. A man as such should not be a difficult find. After so long, Gu Shijio finally found a new direction for her life. She finally felt more alive. However, before she could embark on her journey, Mu Feng came to report, "My lord, the Feishing Kingdom has recently welcomed the arrival of a new prince. The prince is quite special. As soon as he was born, the room shone in glistening red light. Many magpies circled in the air as if forecasting good news." Chapter 1871 Unexpected events accompanied the birth of the prince. Traditionally speaking, the birth of a child with anomalies required the inspection from the Lord. Gu Shijio was in the mood for it, so she attended. Her first meeting with the child almost gave her a heart attack. The child was about 2 weeks old, lying comfortably in the arms of the nanny. Unlike most babies with wrinkled skin, his face was full of delicate features. He was indeed a beautiful baby. He had a pair of very dark eyes. Their eyes met when Gu Shijio bent down to take a closer look at him. Surprisingly, he pinched his little lips into a thin line and flushed crimson. He hid his face away, seemingly embarrassed. His look was familiar. Gu Shijio directed an audio message to him. "Rong Jialua?" The child froze momentarily. Then, he turned to look at her intensely. The look in his eyes surely did not come from an infant. Gu Shijio placed her finger gently on his nose. Under the glamorous seven-colored ray, she finally sensed the essence of his soul. It was Rong Jialo. He had reincarnated and was born again into the royal family. If she was not mistaken, he would still be the eldest prince of the kingdom and would once again retrieve what he had lost. Only this time, he returned with a different identity. Moreover, he carried his memories from his previous life. Rong Jiaoyuo's death had always been a great loss for Gu Shijio. She actually thought that his soul had melted away. To her surprise, he made his comeback. No matter what, his return had brought great joy to Gu Shijio. The child will have a bright future of extraordinary achievements, Gu Shijio made her conclusion. Such a compliment from the Lord came as a huge triumph to the emperor of the Facian kingdom. He bowed and requested for his name from the Lord. Gu Shijio then turned to look at Rong Jiao. He was watching her fixedly with his small eyes. His lips moved a little, struggling to say to her, Jiao. He wanted to be himself. The child very much resembles the late emperor. I shall name him Jiao. The emperor was shocked. He was the younger brother of Rong Jiao. When Rong Jiao was still alive, he treated his younger brother with care. Indeed, the emperor missed him dearly. If his child was named the same as the late emperor, would it be inappropriate? He told Gu Shijio about his concern. She responded, It does not matter. The name sounds the same but bears different characters. I named the child with the name, in memory of your late brother. If the Lord insisted, the emperor would not comment any further. He quickly named his son as Rong Jiao and ranked him as the eldest prince of the kingdom. He also proclaimed a general amnesty to celebrate his birth. The life of a common man seemed good, completed with the cycle of birth and death, and even reincarnation. Once reincarnated, one would have nothing to do with the previous life and start anew. It was a rare visit from the Lord, so the emperor gave her a hospitable reception on her arrival. Many old friends and relatives joined the feast as well. It was a jolly gathering. Seeing these familiar faces could not help but give Gu Shijio a sense of emptiness. The place was bustling with life and excitement, but she could still feel a void as if something important was missing. During the feast, the emperor asked if the Futsong Palace should be torn down for refurbishment. The emperor was, in fact, referring to the residence of Celestial Masters when he talked about the Futsong Palace. Of course, he could not recall who used to reside there. The Futsong Palace was nothing but an empty building now. The emperor of the Facian kingdom wanted to gift the palace to his official. However, Gu Shijio was reluctant to give it away, for it somehow meant something special to her. Chapter 1872. It would be unreasonable for the palace to be left empty. Moreover, the palace was built on the ground with the best feng shui out of the entire capital city, where every inch of the land was valuable. The emperor thus seized the opportunity to ask Gu Shijio of her opinion about the place. Gu Shijio insisted on keeping the palace, so she shook her head to dismiss the emperor's suggestion. Do not touch anything about the palace. I am keeping it for my personal use. The emperor decided not to ask anything more. Before Gu Shijio departed, she decided to erase Rong Jiaoyuo's memory about his previous life. His past life had not always been good. He had been living with heavy burdens all his life. In the end, his body was taken by Mo Zhao, and he died a tragic death. His reincarnation should grant him a new chance to live a new life, without the burdens of his past. Moreover, the emperor missed his elder brother very dearly. If he knew that his own son was the reincarnation of his beloved brother, there might be a negative influence on his growth. If Rong Jiao kept his memory, he would easily expose himself. Gu Shijio did not return to the residence of National Celestial Master. Instead, she paid a visit to the Futsong Palace. The place had been abandoned for almost 2 years. The pavilions and even the main buildings were all covered in long, overgrown grass, making the place look even more desolate. She walked the path and performed a spell to mow the grass as she went. She wanted the place to see the light of day once more. Slowly, her casual promenade led her all the way to the lakeside of the thermal spring. A thin, misty fog floated on the lake's surface, making it look unusually surreal. Without giving much thought, she leaped into the water, submerging her body in the warm water. She softly rippled the calm surface of the lake, and the scene reminded her of something familiar. She fell into a trance. In her vision, she saw a beautiful lady in a red dress, submerging half of her body in the water. A tiny figure in black was hugging her, that lady. However, they did not seem intimate. It seemed more like an attack. It roughly reminded her of a conversation. You have seen me naked. You have even touched me. How could a princess like me be entirely exposed and even touched by a man? I have lost my chastity. I am ready to die to preserve my honor. I am a woman. I fail to notice that. My puberty has failed me. I really am a woman. If you choose to believe me, how? How are you going to prove it? The content of the conversation was too much for her to process. She could not tell the genders apart, but she knew there were two voices. Surprisingly, she could remember that the beauty in red was, in fact, a man and the tiny, black figure was a woman. There was a splash, pulling her back to reality, but there was only her, alone in the huge lake. There was not anyone else. Her heart started to throb as sadness filled it. She took a deep breath to calm herself down. Was the vision an actual event of what they had been through? This time, the man was dressed entirely in fiery red. It seems like this man was not consistently wearing purple. He would sometimes dress in red, and other times in white. Was the man Huang Tu, the man that was mentioned by the firmament stone? If so, Gu Shijio knew that he did not go to the upper bound after his immortalization. He had vanished entirely. They would not meet again. She took the box out, tossing and turning it in her hands like her empty heart. Her mission was to find the master of the box. Surely, its master must be someone extraordinary. Who would that be? High above the world, the moon kindled the lake, shining on the calm surface and the forlorn figure of hers. Gu Shijio closed her eyes, lost in her own thoughts. She had so many questions without answers. The heavenly law. A voice emerged so suddenly. Gu Shijio opened her eyes, obviously in shock. What? The master of the box was the embodiment of the heavenly law. The voice had come as a bit of a shock. Chapter 1873. In great astonishment, Gu Shijio could not believe the jade figure that she saw in her dream was the master of the heavenly law. Was the master of the heavenly law the one who buried the box? Gu Shijio had to find out. The signs of the heavenly law should not be revealed. You only have to know that the one that you are looking for is the master of the heavenly law, and that is all. Did the master of the heavenly law escape and you need my help to capture him? Who needs your help to capture the master of heavenly law? Outrageous. Why should I look for him, then? Give him the box and let fate take its course. By the way, is he a man? Nonsense. Where is he? I do not know. Gu Shijio was speechless. If she could not be sure where to look for him, the search would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It would definitely be a long, long search. How do I know it is him? You will have to count on your intuition. Gu Shijio was confused again. Her intuition worked like magic every time, but she did not know when to trust her intuition, especially since she had never met the man before. A sudden realization hit her. Could they be the same man, the man in her past and the master of the heavenly law? She felt her heart beat violently. Seizing the opportunity, she continued, Is Huang Tu the master of the heavenly law? Gu Shijio frowned in frustration. What did you mean with that? Yes or no? The voice disappeared. Gu Shijio waited, but the answer never came. She heaved a sigh and made up her mind that her search from now on would be for the master of the heavenly law. The master of the heavenly law sounded very much like a condescending existence. Even if he had reincarnated, his superior presence should be easily noticeable. To Gu Zijia's greatest surprise, the man was not easy to find. It was basically an impossible mission. The search lasted for almost 200 years. From the upper to the lower bound, she searched for him tirelessly and had met many powerful people. None of them was him. Many things happened during the 2 centuries. In the lower bound, Gu Shetian had eventually passed away. Before his death, he finally asked for Luo Xinglan's forgiveness. They promised to meet each other again in their next lives for their love to be continued. Soon, Luo Xinglan died following his death. 3 years before his death, Luo Zhanyu, also known as Gu Tianhua, finally acknowledged his past and changed his name to Gu Zhanyu. Gu Zhanyu heeded Luo Xinglan's last words and buried her next to Gu Shetian, making both of their final wishes come true. Gu Zhanyu did not get himself involved in politics. Instead, he became the greatest overlord of his time. After the death of the emperor in the Feitian kingdom, Rong Jialua ascended the throne and became the new emperor. Rong Jialua possessed distinctive qualities, and with Gu Zijia's help, he managed to achieve a level 9 spiritual power before he turned 30, greatly extending his lifespan. Being a wise emperor, he made every effort to make the country prosperous. Within the 2 centuries, Gu Shijio tested and found 5 true heaven gifts disciples. She assigned Mu Feng to guide and help them grow. Certainly, there were some false ones. Gu Shijio had to send them away to the dark forest, leaving them to fend for themselves. In the meantime, she would visit the Forbidden Land once every 20 years to bring back the people who had reached level 9. These people felt a mixture of awe and reverence of her. They dared not stir up troubles. Instead, they would either establish their own clans or wander around the world at their will. The land thrived and returned to its usual prosperity. Surely, some of Gu Zijia's friends died. Some died a natural death, others died in wars. Li Mengxia, for example, died in a war. Before her death, Gu Shijio was right beside her. Gu Shijio intended to rescue her by rewinding her death. Chapter 1874. Gu Shijio intended to rescue her by rewinding her death, but her attempt had been kindly rejected. With her remaining breaths, Li Mengxia said, "Shijio, let it happen." Death seemed like the liberation of her pain. Gu Shijio was surprised. Why? Li Mengxia stared into the sky blankly. "I miss him. He never came for me. I shall look for him, then." Li Mengxia had always been very optimistic about everything. She rushed around only to get her work done. Also, she had always been single. Gu Shijio never knew why. At first, she thought Li Mengxia was against the idea of marriage. Little did she know that she had always loved the same man. Who is he? Gu Shijio was curious. Overlord Long, Li Mengxia told her frankly. She finally talked about the name for the last time, the name that had been troubling her for years. Gu Shijio was utterly surprised. Li Mengxia had never talked about her feelings publicly. Long Sai was doing very well in the upper bound. He was now a general, commonly acknowledged as Sai, the senior immortal. He even had his own residence in the 7th layer of heaven. After her death, Li Mengxia would be sent to hell instead. She would be reincarnated. Even in her death, she would not be able to see Long Sai again. She held Li Mengxia's hand tightly and told her about Long Sai's condition, hoping that it would give her a sense of hope to live on. Li Mengxia was momentarily lost for words. Soon, she responded with a smile and said, "Actually, it is good this way. I only have to know that he is fine. I will be entering my next cycle of life soon. I will start anew without remembering him. I will be free from the misery of loving him and hopefully, I will be happily in love with another man." Her eyes were full of hope. "I am looking forward to the next life." Gu Shijio would not be able to change her mind, and Li Mengxia died in her arms later. Gu Shijio buried her on a hill with beautiful views. Li Mengxia was a very good friend. Although Gu Shijio had become the Lord, their friendship never changed. Gu Shijio grieved for her death. One of the perks of being the Lord was that she could find out where her rebirth would be. 15 years later, Gu Shijio found Li Mengxia in the Haoyue kingdom. Indeed, she could finally lead a happy, blissful life with her childhood sweetheart. When she found her, they were soon going to be married. One thing that remained was Li Mengxia's temperament. She was still the same enthusiastic lady as she used to be. She and her childhood sweetheart were so in love, like an affectionate couple. Gu Shijio watched as they left hand in hand for an outing together. She had forgotten entirely about Long Sai after her reincarnation. It was considered a blessing to her. Hence, Gu Shijio did not interrupt her and left. Her boundless life had taught her many things. She had seen many bitter moments of separation and death. She had also been through many stages of life, too many to take them all seriously. Nothing really mattered to her anymore. In fact, she became less emotional as time went on. Did Huang Tu, the previous lord, have the same experience? Did he truly care about anything in his life? Did he really care about anything at all? The affection that they once had was true, wasn't it? Her long, boundless life was getting a little boring. How did Huang Tu pass his time? Without any memory about Huang Tu, all she could do was to make random speculations. Her long years of life seemed to have no end, giving her a profound sense of ennui. Her mission became the only source of joy. All these years, she had been traveling back and forth between the upper and lower bounds. Every time she heard about the existence of some odd men, she would go and check it out immediately, but none of them was the one she was looking for. Chapter 1875. Yun Yanli had been helping her search around heaven. However, the results were disappointing as none was the one she was looking for, even though there were more than 200 mighty immortals. Since she found out that those people were not the one she was looking for, she went to the Devil Kingdom and the Monster Kingdom. Unfortunately, it was disappointing too. Thus, she was not eager to go to heaven anymore. Sometimes she only went once a year, and sometimes she only went up there once every 3 to 4 years. The longest she was away was 10 years. Surprisingly, she realized everything had changed when during the 10-year gap. There was a little devil master in the Devil Kingdom, and rumor has it that the little devil master was reborn. The little devil master was very powerful as she attacked heaven and hurt many of the immortals there. The devil master had already united the celestial devil continent when Gu Shijio visited again, and all 3 realms of the immortals, devils, and monsters had already submitted to her. While Yun Yanli went missing during the war, Gu Shijio was only a guest of heaven and she never wanted to be involved in any matter. Hence, she did not manage to find Yun Yanli. Since she was sure that Long Sai was safe, she did not take this incident seriously and continued to look for her target. Certainly, Gu Shijio found the little devil master suspicious and secretly followed her. She realized that she was indeed a very charming girl with a strong aura. Gu Shijio seemed to admire her, however, she was not her target. She stayed at heaven as per a request but brought back nothing. Suddenly, she heard that the Divine Lord had returned when she was about to leave. It was rumored that the reason this continent was named as the Celestial Devil Continent was that it was ruled and managed by the Divine Lord and Devil Master. However, the Divine Lord and the Devil Master went missing together. Therefore, the Emperor Immortal became the ruler. It was probably due to this reason that heaven was in chaos right now. Anyway, the Divine Lord and the Devil Master returned. It definitely prevented the Emperor Immortal from being the sole ruler now. However, the Divine Lord had a complicated relationship with the little Devil Master. Certainly, Gu Shijio had to find out more about the Divine Lord. His name was Shinjioli. He was charming and possessed a very strong aura too. However, Gu Shijio knew he was not the one the moment she saw him, though she sensed a very different aura from the Divine Lord, as if the person she was looking for had a special relationship with the Divine Lord. She was contemplating extending her stay, but she had not much time to delay. 6 months later, she returned to heaven and realized there was major change again. The Emperor Immortal was missing and many talented immortals disappeared along with him. Not only that, even the spiritual energy was not as rich as usual. Almost all the buildings of the 3 realms collapsed. Apparently, the continent had just gone through a disaster as she felt dark energy still lingered in the air. Everyone looked anxious, but also relieved that they survived. She saw the Divine Lord, Shinjioli, and the Devil Master, Ning Shuema, when she was on the way to the 7th layer of heaven. Both of them seemed to be relieved too. Chapter 1876. Initially, Gu Shijio thought both of them had a special relationship with the one she was looking for. She would have greeted them and even invited them for a drink back in the past. However, she found it difficult to interrupt them based on their current interaction. Therefore, she flew away after she excused herself. However, she sensed that a pair of eyes were watching her. She was stunned, as she felt someone was watching her with a crystal ball or something equivalent. She quickly checked her surroundings and fixed her eyes in a specific direction. However, she only found more survivors present. What's going on? She was confused. She made her move to the land after a ponder. She decided to dig in at a restaurant and continue to collect information. This restaurant was the best place to collect information. Since she intended to know more, she managed to understand the incident right after her meal. She finally found out that the continent was swept away by a particular Venom a few months ago. The three realms almost turned into hell. Therefore, the Divine Lord, the Devil Master, the Emperor Immortal, and a few senior immortals worked together to seal a purple venom. Unfortunately, the Divine Lord was immortalized during the process, and a substitute Divine Lord was born. The substitute Divine Lord wanted to unite the three realms and become the ruler of the three realms. The Emperor Immortal joined the alliance of the new Divine Lord to attack the Devil Master, Ning Xuema, and her son. Unexpectedly, the Emperor Immortal and the new Divine Lord were defeated when Xing Xuema counterattacked. Therefore, the Emperor Immortal was dethroned while the substitute Divine Lord was missing. The substitute Divine Lord could not bear his failure and intended to kidnap Ning Xuema's son but failed. He quickly retreated to the hell and set a trap to suck Ning Xuema and the King of Hell into the array. At the critical moment, the Divine Lord, Shinjuli, returned and killed the substitute Divine Lord along with help from Ning Xuema. The celestial devil continent has finally returned to its harmony. When Gu Shijio saw them, it was the moment right after they killed the substitute Divine Lord. However, Gu Shijio was not interested in anything related to the continent, and she was not a fan of the Emperor Immortal. Her only concern was her friend's safety and whether they have found Yun Yanli, who has been missing for a while now. Gu Shijio found Long Sai, and both of them became good friends again in the past 200 years. They basically just talked about everything. Even in heaven, Long Sai was also a genius as he managed to be promoted to a senior immortal in just 200 years. The last time Gu Shijio came, she took a stroll in his residence. Although it was not huge, there was a hall with 2 rooms. This time, Gu Shijio noticed the small residence was gone, but it was replaced by a bigger residence with a new signboard. If she did not notice Long Sai's handwriting, she would have thought someone had invaded his residence. Seems like he got promoted again? She knocked on the door, and an unfamiliar little girl opened the door. "Who are you looking for?" the little girl asked as she started to ponder. "Is Sai here?" Previously, Long Sai did not have any servant although he owned a residence. Hence, Gu Shijio used to open the door by herself. She was surprised to see a lady servant this time. The little girl was stunned. "You are?" "Shijio." A man walked out from the inner courtyard. It was Long Sai. The new residence was so much bigger than the previous one. There was a bridge above the stream, and the roof's design was also different now. Chapter 1877. Many beautiful flowers were blooming in the garden. He even had a herbs corner at the southern part of his house. That was exactly Long Sai's style of living. Gu Shijio and Long Sai walked side by side. Jokingly, she asked, "So, you got promoted?" Long Sai smiled. "Nah, just not being discriminated anymore." Gu Shijio frowned as she looked at him. Long Sai prepared a table of pastries in a flick of his sleeve. "Here, let's eat while we talk. You hardly visit me anymore." Gu Shijio smiled as she looked at a table full of food. "You are indeed rich now." All the dishes were made from expensive ingredients, and Long Sai could not afford to pay for this back then. "Shijio, I earned these with my hard work. It will be better in the future." Long Sai smiled. Both of them ate while they continued chit-chatting. Gu Shijio knew more about Long Sai's life from there. Those who ascended were usually discriminated. They could only hold a position ranked 6th in the hierarchy. Hence, they did not really have a good life as most of them could only become servants. Previously, Long Sai worked under the supervision of Yun Yanli, hence, he enjoyed some privileges because of Gu Shijio. Additionally, because of his talents, he had a relatively good life in the military camp. However, since Yun Yanli was missing, everything had changed. Princess Ye came back and made his life miserable. She even instigated Long Sai's superior to abuse him. Long Sai had a very difficult life since then, and he almost collapsed. Helplessly, he paid a visit to the first general of heaven, Yi Tianli. Fortunately enough, Yi Tianli recruited him because of his talent and hired him as a chief soldier. Yi Tianli was quite close to Ning Xuema as he decided to support Ning Xuema during the war. Since Ning Xuema won the battle, she rewarded everyone in her alliance. Therefore, Long Sai got a relatively good residence. Gu Shijio heaved a long sigh as she listened to Long Sai. In fact, there was not much difference between heaven and the Saha world. Both were full of dramas and chaos. Although the Saha world that was supervised by the Emperor Immortal looked well managed, it was full of discrimination. They did not value those who ascended. Sadly, those ascended immortals were a capable group. Thus, they could not work with the natives during the war. In addition, the Emperor Immortal joined the alliance of the substitute Divine Lord to harm the Devil Master. They even attacked the Devil Kingdom when she was in severe illness, in order to kill her and her son who was less than a year old. They lost trust from the Immortals and even caused so many injuries to the soldiers. Furthermore, the Emperor Immortal went missing. However, Gu Shijio did not care the Emperor Immortal's whereabouts, though she did have concerns about Yun Yanli's well-being. Long Sai shook his head when Gu Shijio asked if he could help to find his location. The Emperor Immortal did send many people to look for Yun Yanli, however, nothing was found all these years. Suddenly, Long Sai received an order from his superior while they were talking. He was assigned to oversee the safety of all guests as the Divine Lord, and the Devil Master was going to have a grand wedding ceremony. Chapter 1878. The military order was of absolute importance. Long Sai certainly had to obey. Thus, he quickly left after saying goodbye to Gu Shijio. In fact, Gu Shijio was interested in the wedding ceremony of the Divine Lord and the Devil Master. She was surprised that the deity could marry a devil. Rumor has it that the Devil Master and the Divine Lord had a very special relationship in another continent, and they even had a child. Strangely, the baby was incubated in the stone of Nuwa, and it was born from the rock. To everyone's surprise, the baby could run and speak right after he was born. It must be a miracle if the child was born in an ordinary family. However, since he was the child of the Divine Lord and the Devil Master, he must have inherited many of their strong powers. Thus, it was not beyond Gu Zijia's expectation that he was strange. The baby must be extraordinarily strong since he was the child of a deity and a devil, and also nurtured in the stone of Nuwa. Gu Shijio was always busy every single time she was here as she had to look for her target. Although the wedding ceremony of the Divine Lord and the Devil Master was a grand event, she was not fascinated, and she did not plan to attend in the first place. However, she suddenly realized it might be a good place to find her target as many capable guests from the three realms would be invited. The wedding ceremony of the Divine Lord and the Devil Master was definitely an extravaganza. It was extremely crowded and glamorous. The wedding carriage was made from celestial flowers with pearl tassels as the accessories. As Gu Shijio expected, all the great people from three realms were there. The event was filled with waves of laughter, and celestial petals showered everyone. Gu Shijio was invisible in the crowd. Suddenly, she found the scene very familiar, as if someone has thrown her such a grand wedding ages ago. She seemed to have an impression that someone in a red robe was carrying his bride and hopped onto the wedding carriage as he walked out of the door. The illusion disappeared immediately as she shook her head. She often saw the illusion over the last 200 years. As usual, it was always of a couple, which no longer surprised her. On the positive side, the blurry illusion has finally become clearer now. She could now slowly see the body figure of the couple. That was considered as a huge improvement to her. Gu Shijio was screening the guests as she walked through the crowd. There were many different people in the event. Some were handsome, some were elegant. Gu Shijio saw plenty of heads as she scanned across the hall. She rubbed her eyes and wondered if she could sense her target since there were so many people in there. She was never a fan of a crowded place. However, she had to bear with it for her mission. She slowly observed as she followed the wedding carriage. Unknowingly, she arrived at the doorstep of the Divine Lord's mansion in the ninth heaven, also known as Fantion Palace. The Fantion Palace was surrounded by auspicious energy and was blocked by countless guests. Despite searching every corner, Gu Shijio still did not find anything. She was disappointed, to say the least. Luckily, she has gotten used to being disappointed over the last 200 years. Hence, it was not a big deal to her. She did not like to stay in the crowd, so she hid in midair and watched the wedding ceremony. Suddenly, she seemed to have found something. She quickly fixed her gaze on a child. Chapter 1879. The child looked between 4 to 5 years old with a light golden robe which changed colors under the sunlight. He had a pair of big eyes with long lashes and pouty lips. He was carrying a flower basket while walking slowly as he threw some petals to the crowd. Behind him was a line of little girls in their white dress and another line of little boys in light blue robes. All these kids looked very lovely, but all of them together could not beat the one with the light golden robe. The little boy was smiling as he walked toward the newlywed couple. He was not nervous at all, though so many pairs of eyes watched him. Gu Zijia's heart suddenly skipped a beat as she looked at the little boy. She had an illusion then and there. A couple was stuck in a small gap. Hence, the man suddenly shrunk and the lady managed to escape as she carried him. The lady let go of the man and realized he has turned into a little boy who was less than a meter in height. The lady left after a short while but turned back again after taking a few steps. Shockingly, the little boy was growing at a rapid pace, and he smiled embarrassingly with 2 dimples on his cheeks when he noticed that the lady was looking at him. In the blink of an eye, all the images almost disappeared instantly. Interestingly enough, Gu Shijio realized the little boy she saw in the illusion looked exactly the same as the flower boy down there. She felt her heart sink. She looked at the little boy again and realized he had a bouquet in his hand. He slowly delivered it to the bride and said, "Happy wedding, Mom." And "Happy birthday." Gu Shijio was stunned. She finally understood that the little boy was the legendary child of a deity and a devil, Shenyanma. Shenyanma's robe was straight and tidy to the extent that no wrinkle could be found. Hua is standing side by side with a little baby girl who had a pair of big eyes. She was giving her blessing as well. The bride, Ning Shuema, was certainly very happy. She rubbed her son's head followed by the baby girl's after she accepted the bouquet. The baby girl was happily smiling, but Shin Yenma pursed his lips. The ceremony continued its progress as everyone was focused on the newlywed couple. On the other side, Gu Shijio was still hiding while trying to figure out more about Shin Yenma. I thought everyone said that the son of the deity and the devil was not even a year old. Why would he look like a 4 to a 5-year-old child? Apparently, Shin Yenma was the leader of the group of children. All of them surrounded him after they completed their tasks. The baby girl who delivered the bouquet with Shin Yenma followed him everywhere. Out of nowhere, she gave Shin Yenma a candy. "This is for you, brother Nyenma." Shin Yenma was very arrogant, and he did not even intend to take it. "I don't like candy." The baby girl did not feel embarrassed and still followed him. In envy, she said as she lifted her chin while watching the newlywed couple performing the wedding rituals, "It's good to be married. Brother Nyenma, would you marry me when I grow up?" Shen Nyenma slanted his head as he looked at the baby girl. He retrieved a pepper out of nowhere and gave it to the baby girl. "Do you dare to eat this?" The baby girl first looked at the red pepper and then shifted her gaze to Shen Nyenma. Decisively, she grabbed the pepper and took a big bite. Chapter 1880. Apparently, the little girl choked due to the spiciness. She coughed uncontrollably, and a runny nose with tears streamed down her face. The little girl looked at Shin Nyenma, though she did not cry or cause a scene. "Brother Nyenma, are you happy now?" Shin Nyenma smiled and replied as he looked at the bubbles around the baby girl's nose. "No. You're too dirty." The girl finally burst into tears. Gu Shijio laughed as she watched afar. What a little bad asteriskis. Mischievous to say the least. Gu Shijio did not usually like children. Moreover, she had something more important to do right now. Logical speaking, she should observe others. However, strangely, she could not get her eyes off Shen Yanma today. Was he too charming? Shen Yanma did not bother the baby girl who he had hurt but turned away to see his parents. Suddenly, he lifted his head and looked at the direction of Gu Shijio as if he realized something. Certainly, he could not see anything as Gu Shijio was invisible in the clouds. However, Gu Shijio felt their gazes meet. She was a little anxious. The little boy's pupils were as dark as the night. She could see his clear gaze with indescribable charm. She shook her head and sighed. That's indeed the son of a deity and a devil. He has a strong aura of the combination of good and evil. Gosh, he must be a disaster to many ladies when he grows up. When she was still idling, a bouquet crashed into her embrace. She was stunned, however, she recognized it was the bride's bouquet as she took a look. She lowered her head and saw many guests were looking for the bouquet as they lifted their heads. Apparently, the newlywed couple had just thrown the bouquet. The bride must have applied too much force, hence, the bouquet flew up to the sky. Coincidentally, the bouquet crashed into her embrace. As the groom looked at her direction, she knew that he could see her. According to tradition, whoever received the hand bouquet from the bride would be the next bride. That was a good sign. Hence, many wished to get it. Gu Shijio shook her head as she looked at the bouquet. She did not think she would ever have the opportunity to be a bride. She was not interested in any man now. When she was about to move, the groom flicked his sleeve and the clouds surrounding Gu Shijio immediately disappeared. She was exposed. Many pairs of eyes were looking at her as if they could not believe someone was watching up there. Gu Shijio was so glad that she was wearing a light purple robe today and also covered her face with a mask. Thus, no one managed to see her real appearance. She coughed gently. I'm just a passerby. I did not intend to compete for the hand bouquet. May I know who do you wish to give the bouquet to? I can help you to deliver it. The bride smiled. It's just a ritual for a blessing. It belongs to you. Since you got it, it's meant to be yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Gu Shijio shook her head. I would not have the chance. It's best to give it to someone else. Let me throw it on your behalf and see who is the one. She flicked her hand and let go of the bouquet. Chapter 1881. Countless hands rose from the bottom, all of them trying to catch the bouquet. Beyond everyone's expectations, a gust of wind blew the bouquet to the top of someone's head. Gu Shijio looked down and was taken by surprise. The person whose head was hit by the bouquet was none other than Shen Yanma. Shen Yanma hastily swept the bouquet off his head. Enraged, he looked up and glared right at Gu Shijio. Shen Yanma possessed limpid eyes and a face that was as exquisite as jade. He lifted a finger inside his sleeve and tried to motion a spell to topple the person who threw the bouquet down with an arc of lightning, but when he looked at Gu Shijio again, he was frozen with shock. The person in the sky was garbed in a robe of light purple while wearing a terrifying mask that concealed his or her entire face. He could not even identify whether the person was a man or a woman. The gaze behind the mask caused him great anxiety for some reason, rendering him unable to finish the casting of his spell. Gu Shijio coughed lightly. Sorry, she quickly apologized before disappearing in a flash. Shen Yanma was left dumbfounded. The god of war, also known as Yi Tianli, who was standing beside him, congratulated him with a smile. Yanma, congratulations for being blessed by the lucky star of marriage. Shen Yanma raised his eyebrows slightly and asked puzzledly, What lucky star? Can it raise my external abilities? Yi Tianli was speechless while everyone in the crowd laughed cheerfully. Shen Yanma looked at the bouquet that he was now holding in his hand. The flowers were still fresh and contained a hint of the faint fragrance of the person in purple just now. Brother Yanma, can you give these flowers to Xiling? Xiling likes flowers. The little girl that Shen Yanma made cry just now gathered herself and extended to him her plump white arm. At this moment the newly wedded couple had already left, so the attention of the crowd shifted to Shen Yanma. Looking at the gestures of the little girl, they felt that both of them were cute and matched each other. Those among the crowd who were keen discerned that the little girl was the beloved daughter of Lu Nianzhenren, and he himself was a friend of the divine Lord Shinjoli, who possessed extraordinary prowess in spellcasting. He was truly a man of great powers. Now his daughter was standing beside Shenyanma. The two children looked like a couple together and were extremely pleasing to the eye. The crowd could not help but talk and laugh amongst themselves as they coaxed Shenyanma to give the bouquet to her. Some that were more audacious even teased him. "Nyanma, why don't you give the bouquet to Xiling and let her be your wife?" Shenyanma feigned deafness to the crowd's teasing and put the bouquet next to his ears as though he was listening to something. The crowd looked at him curiously, each wondering what he was going to do. After a moment, Shenyanma moved the bouquet away and looked at Lu Xiling intently. "Sorry, the flowers said that they don't like you. You're too fat." Lu Xiling was embarrassed. Her face flushed with red and she broke into tears again. How was she fat? She only had a bit of baby fat on her. She was not fat. Egu Shijio could not sleep again tonight and took another look at that box. She had possessed that box for about 200 years, but no one has been able to open it. Who was the person that she needed to meet? The figure of Shenyanma flashed before her mind. She rubbed her eyes and felt that that child looked very familiar. He was so cute that she wanted to hug him. Chapter 1882. Could he be the person that she is looking for? It couldn't be, right? The person she is searching for is the head of the heavenly law. She could believe that the divine lord, Shinjuli, might be that person, but as for that child, even if the head of the heavenly law had 1,000 incarnations, he would not take the form of a child, right? But what if he would? She felt that there was something strange about that child. Just the thought of the incident kept her up all night, even after changing her sleeping position multiple times. Hence, Gu Shijio decided just to put on her robe and get up. As there were too many people around the other day, her senses may have gone astray. Therefore, she decided to go exploring at night to check whether she could sense anything. As Gu Shijio was someone who would act on impulse, she immediately set out in pursuit. Shen Yanma lived in the Fantian Palace. Gu Shijio knew that Fantian Palace was specially located on top of the 9th layer of heaven. It was the apex of the heavens. Except for its host and a select few servants, others are unable to enter its gates. It was a heavily guarded location. The Divine Lord himself set the barriers. Hence, Gu Shijio thought that going into this place would take a lot of effort. Contrary to her expectations, she was able to enter it without any obstacles by just simple teleportation. She was shocked when she successfully entered. Was it because the host was newly wedded and the guests had not left yet? No matter the reason, at least she got in. Because she had attended the wedding ceremony in the morning, she was still quite familiar with the layout. As it was already near dawn, she was able to go undetected. In a moment, she quickly found Shenyanmo's home. Gu Zijia's external abilities were now at a high level, and her stealth technique was the best of its kind. She felt gratified at her success in infiltrating the palace without notice but worried about the security of the place at the same time. If she could enter the place so easily, what if an enemy of the house just barged in and kidnapped their children? She suppressed that thought and put her ears to the window, closely listening. Hearing the soft sounds of breathing inside, she knew that the person inside was already deep in sleep. Being deep in sleep is good, it would make her search much easier. In a flash, she teleported into the room. The room was elegantly decorated. On the side of a curtained bed by the wall, there was a mussel with its partially open shell, revealing the rays of a pearl within it. Gu Zijia's eyes turned toward the mussel, and she inadvertently thought of her own mussel, who was training in the lower bound. As their power levels were not high enough, the mussel and Lu Wu were unable to follow her. Every time Gu Shijio traveled to the upper bound, she would send them to the Futsong Palace for training. The mussel in front of her had striking similarities to her own mussel. Even their color was the same. Her line of sight turned toward the curtains of the bed. The curtains were of a light blue shade and had an ink painting drawn on it, giving it a misty intrigue. The style of drawing was extremely delicate and exquisite. It was clear that Shin Yanma drew the painting on the curtains. It looks like this child has quite a talent for art. Gu Shijio stood by the bed for a while. She then opened the curtains lightly and finally saw the child sleeping inside. His lashes were long and beautiful while his cheeks were as beautiful as jade. His tiny lips that closed gently seemed to carry a smile even in its neutral position. He carried a soft fragrance that was extremely faint. Still, it reminded Gu Shijio of something. She felt something gently tugging at her heartstrings. She looked at this child and had a sudden strange urge to caress him. Chapter 1883. As Gu Shijio did not want to wake him up from his dream, she decided to extend her hand gently and touch his soft face with the tip of her finger. However, before her finger made contact, his lashes suddenly quivered, and his eyes quickly opened. In her astonishment, Gu Shijio forgot to conceal herself, and their eyes met. She was dumbfounded, while Shinyanma could not believe what he saw. His previously blurry eyes enlarged in an instant. Before Gu Shijio could react, her eyes were suddenly shrouded in blackness. The blanket was about to envelop her. A hint of confusion hit her. She seemed to recall using this technique herself before and did not expect this child to use it as well. She raised her hand, causing the blanket to fall to the ground without even grazing the sleeves of her robe. Ha! A strong force pressed against her. The magnitude of the force was surprisingly large. Gu Shijio took a few steps back and waved her sleeve, dissipating the force into nothing. She raised her head only to find the child having crashed and escaped from the window. Gu Shijio was usually a very stealthy person, hence, she did not see any of this coming. Moreover, was she that frightening? Why did the child react as though he had just seen a ghost? She touched her face inadvertently and felt the coldness of a mask. She quite liked to put on masks recently and would wear it every time she was out. She possessed a huge selection of masks that came in a variety of styles. When Gu Shijio decided to come here, she simply chose her mask without taking a close look. In fact, she scared herself when she saw the mask that she had chosen. The mask portrayed a hauntingly white visage with a bloody red mouth that had half a tongue protruding from it. The mask looked eerily similar to the face of a hanged man. She coughed lightly. To think that a child saw a face like that in the middle of the night. He was already brave for not being scared out of his mind. Instead of running away immediately, he even managed to launch an attack. He had real talent. But where did he go to now? He would not go to his parents, right? Both of them were just married and were probably in the process of consummating their marriage tonight. Surely they would not like to be interrupted. Gu Shijio would certainly not wish to do so either. Gu Shijio quickly teleported out the door and saw two figures, one big and one small, coming forward from afar. Her heart jumped. She shifted herself up to a densely leaved tree nearby and hid. The two figures were none other than the Divine Lord Shinjoli and Shinyanma. Shinyanma still looked unnerved. "Father, I really saw a fiend. Is he your mortal enemy? Could it be that Luojui?" Shinjoli shook his head. "Don't worry, Luojui already died a long time ago and won't come back to life." He took a look at his son and continued, "Why? Are you afraid?" Shinyanma raised his chin at him. "No way. I'm just checking with you." Shinjuli could not help but laugh at his response. "All right, thank you for it." The two walked into Shinyanmo's bedroom while talking. Shinjuli walked out after a while. When he went past the tree Gu Shijio was hiding in, he gently looked up and said, "Train him well." He then left with grace. Gu Shijio sat on the branch. Turns out that Shinjuli had noticed her. However, did he not care too much about her terrifying his son? Seems that he only made a passing remark on that issue. Gu Shijio rubbed her brows. She did not intend to scare him, it was a mistake. But what did Shinjuli mean by train him well? Did the Divine Lord want her to teach his son? Chapter 1884. This should be the responsibility of the newly wedded couple, shouldn't it? Had it been hard for the couple to spend some time together? Perhaps that was the reason they did not want to be disturbed by the light bulb, little Nyenma? Since he did not have time for his son, he was hoping that she could help out? Was it right? Shinjoli had not even interacted with Gu Shijio. How could he entrust his child in her hands? Was he not afraid that she would kidnap his child? Gu Shijio felt that perhaps the Divine Lord's mind was too intricate to be comprehended, hence, she gave up on figuring it out. She turned around to have a look at Shin Nianmo's palace and did not want to freak him out again. Hence, she left. Gu Shijio had a dream that night. It was a weird dream. She dreamt that she was at a place that looked somewhat transcendental and chaotic. The clouds that looked like a rainbow around her were undulating to the current. And within that was a floating palace. The palace was bright purple, looking ethereal within the clouds. Above the palace was the vast starry sky. Gu Shijio stood before the palace and tilted her head upwards towards the starry sky. That was her first time seeing such a starry sky. To be precise, the starry sky before her eyes at the moment was like the view you would only get after boarding a spaceship. Each star had a different shape and a different color. Besides that, they were orbiting under high speed in the sky, making them look extremely astounding. Capturing all these images was enough to make her dizzy. Her vision blurred up, while the world apparently spun around her. She almost tripped and fell. Gu Zijia quickly looked downwards, afraid to stare at it any longer. She was still rather puzzled. She had studied the constellation map when she was on the Earth and was considered an expert in the field. However, she felt that those constellations that she had seen were foreign to her. What was that place? Why did she come here? Within her heart were questions, and her gaze suddenly fell on the top of the palace. A person in a bright purple coat came from nowhere and was lying there all by himself. His long hair was spread out behind him, and within the hair were traces of bright red. A chess set seemed to be placed before him. On the chessboard were chess pieces that were well laid out. However, upon closer observation, Gu Shijio knew that this was not an ordinary chess set, as the pieces were in numbers much greater than that of normal chess. They were moving by themselves about the chessboard, but it was as if some rules restrained the pieces on the chessboard. The person in the purple robe was not facing Gu Shijio directly, hence, Gu Shijio could not clearly identify him. Silhouetted by the light from the chess that looked like stars, his fingertips looked white and sparkly. On his ring finger was a ring of blinding light. Gu Shijio frowned while staring at the person, and her heart was beating frantically. She thought that it must be the first time that she had seen this man, but he seemed familiar, and that familiarity was capable of reminding her of a sense of sorrow in her heart. Who was he? Hey, I am sorry. Excuse me. She called out to greet the person. The person was still lying there and did not bother even to turn to look at her. Hey, may I know where am I? And who are you, sir? The person kept his silence as if he failed to hear anything. Could he not hear her? That scenario was not the first she had encountered in her dreams. Gu Shijio suddenly felt an urge to meet him up front, to know his identity. Chapter 1885. Since he did not heed her call, she would just go right in front of him to size him up. She flew herself over, thinking of reaching the rooftop of the palace. She thought that she would appear right before the person, with an error of fewer than 5 centimeters. However, when she touched down, she realized that she was still in her initial position. She had not even moved by an inch. Gu Shijio was stunned. Even though she was able to see the palace underneath her as she flew by, when she touched down, she was ultimately back to her initial spot. Was she trapped? Or was this worse? She tried to escape but could not. She tilted her head upwards to look at the person on the rooftop. He was in fact so close, yet so far away. Gu Shijio finally gave up and just stared at the man. Her staring helped her to spot something. She realized that the orbit of the chess pieces on the chessboard was similar to that of the stars in the sky. As the person moved the chess pieces about, the stars in the sky were also moved about by an intangible force. Was this man the person who was controlling the night sky? Gu Shijio held her breath. She, being on Earth, was only able to stargaze and tell fortune. She was unable to change the orbit of the stars whatsoever. However, the person had the entire night sky in his hands, and he could shift them about just like chess pieces on a chessboard. Who was this person? How could he have such an ability? She tried as hard as she could to identify the person, but all she could spot was half of the side of his face, and it seemed to be veiled by layers of fog. Her gaze then fell on the ring between his fingers. She initially thought it was a diamond. How sparkling and big! However, upon closer observation, she realized that the shape of the ring was rather familiar. That person seemed very indolent as he lied down, but his movements were graceful. Looking at him was rather pleasing to the eye. Not knowing how long it had been, that person finally sat up. He flicked his fingers, and light streaked across the sky. Suddenly, a stone fell from above. Gu Shijie was shocked and thought it would hit the man on the head. However, right before the stone was about to fall on the rooftop, it turned into the shape of a person. Out came a man in black, kneeling before the man in purple. He said, "Lord, any orders?" The man in black got up rather wistfully. "I have adjusted this star. From now on, you should be guarding it." The man in black was astounded. That quick? The man in purple idly looked at him. "When have I been slow?" The man in black looked downwards. "Lord, you usually take a few hundred years to adjust the stars, but this time you took less than a year to do so." The man in purple threw him a glance. "Not happy that I am fast now? I do not dare to be unhappy with you." The man in black was all fours. The man in purple nodded slightly. "Get up." As the man in black just got on his feet, he immediately bowed at the man in purple while saying, "Since Lord has worked for so long, would you like to go and have a rest? I actually wanted to go down. This time I think it will take a longer time. The 6 of you could take turns to look after the system." The sleeves of the man in purple were floating in the wind. The man in black was stunned. "What? Lord, are you saying that you would like to go to the earth?" Chapter 1886. The man in black was struck. But don't you go down only once every 5,000 years? You have just returned for a year, and you are thinking of going down again? I am afraid your body will not be able to withstand such a strain." The man in purple looked towards a faraway star, fell into a muse, and sighed. "It has been long enough. A day here is equivalent to a year in the Saha world." The man in black wanted to say something but stifled the urge. On the other hand, the man in purple took a glance at him and noticed his body language. "Say it." The man in black said with a straight face, "Lord, according to the heavenly law, you should only go to the earth once every 5,000 years. Therefore, since you had just come back less than a year ago, you should not go to earth with your true identity." The man in purple nodded in acknowledgement. "I understand. I no longer conceal my external abilities, delete my memories, and be in my actual body. I will need to reincarnate." The man in black could not accept the fact. "Lord, with such a position of yours, it would be deprecating for you to reincarnate. Why not change the rules of the heavenly law?" The man in purple shook his head. "No need. The rules of the heavenly law is an intrinsic matter. Changing it would need contemplation. Even though I am the one who set the rules of heavenly law, I will still need to adhere to them. I should not allow the entire plan to be reconstructed for the benefit of myself. I have not reincarnated before. Trying it for once would be a great experience." But if you reincarnate, you would not have any external abilities, nor would you still have your memory. You would be of no difference from an ordinary kid. In addition, seeing that going to Earth right now is an act against the plan, you might bring more trouble onto yourself. The man in black warned him of the precarity of the act and hoped to advise the man in purple against the idea. "Lord, why not wait for 1,000 years before you go down again? Even though I would still be against that decision, at least you would not need to reincarnate then." The man in purple rolled up his sleeves. "I have made up my mind. There is no need to say anything more." The man in black did not intend to stop him but only asked a question. "Lord, should I set up your fate after reincarnating?" The man in purple tilted his head to the side and laughed. "There is no need. I like to be free. There is no need to set it up for me. Allow me to determine my own fate after I reincarnate." "All right." The man in purple looked upwards at the starry sky. He dangled his arms and made a rather weird gesture. Layers of colors then emerged from his body as he took flight. The man in black was stunned for a moment and smacked his own head. "Oh shit, I forgot to ask the Lord which world he will reincarnate. Shit. Once the Lord reincarnates, he would lose all memories and abilities, and when he was faced with danger, later on, I would not be able to help. Gu Shijio was still standing at the same spot and could not believe her eyes. The voice of the man in purple was extremely familiar, and it made her heart twitch. But the conversation between him and his servant was what shocked her the most. The master of heavenly law? The man in purple should be the head of the heavenly law. She really regretted not being able to see his face. That would be of great help if she were to look for him. Had he reincarnated? Who had he reincarnated into? When would it happen? Numerous questions circled about in Gu Zijia's mind, unable to be answered. She could not control herself and took a step forward. The scene before her eyes suddenly spread out and disappeared like fog. Beside her ear was a voice calling for her. Shijio! Shijio! Wake up! Wake up! Gu Shijio opened her eyes momentarily. She woke up in a room in a hotel. There was a person right in front of her who was in a white coat. He was very handsome and charming. It was Long Sai. Chapter 1887. Gu Shijio was puzzled. Before long she asked, "Instructor Long, why are you here?" Long Sai saw that she was awake, and heaved a sigh of relief. "I have been looking for you for the entire day. I never thought that you would be sleeping away in this hotel for 3 days. I could not even wake you up. What happened? Did you have a nightmare?" Gu Shijio sat up and massaged the inner corner of her eyebrows. She knew that she had a dream. Speaking of which, what did she dream of? She massaged her veins while pondering, and her memory failed her. She could only vaguely recall herself meeting the master of the heavenly law. But how did she end up sleeping for so many days? Had she been too overwhelmed by her quest of searching for the master of heavenly law? Long Sai did not actually have any reason to go looking for Gu Shijio. It just so happened that he saw her when he was managing the order on the wedding. Gu Shijio was at the end of the crowd, worrying him. Hence he tried contacting her after his task but to no avail. It was only then that he started searching for her, and it took some time before he finally bumped into her at the hotel. At first, he did not want to disturb her seeing that she was sleeping soundly. However, as she did not show signs of waking up despite the amount of time that passed, he was rather anxious. He started calling out for her, but she did not wake up. Gu Shijio never thought that she would have slept for 3 days. She gently massaged the inner corner of her eyebrows again as she pondered. It could be that I haven't had a good rest for the past couple of days. Long Sai did a quick examination of her health condition, and she seemed to be fine. That helped to ease his earlier worries. It was late in the evening, so Long Sai asked her out to a restaurant, and they chatted over dinner. Through Long Sai, Gu Shijio knew that Saha world had entirely changed over the past few days. Also, the Emperor Immortal who had disappeared was said to have immortalized. There was no trace of him. Besides that, the son of the Emperor Immortal had died in the hands of the great devil, Ning Shuema. Furthermore, Prince Yun Yanli was missing. The Celestial Kingdom could not be without a leader for a day. As a result, the top general, Yi Tianli, ascended to the throne of the Emperor Immortal under orders from the great devil and the Immortal Lord. Once Yi Tianli became Emperor Immortal, he changed the laws in the Celestial Kingdom. The law he first abolished was the one that prevented the ascendant group from getting positions beyond the 6th level. Instead, he wanted to permit social mobility by means of capability. In other words, as long as one had the capability, he or she could reign at a high position. It was also due to the change made that Long Sai was promoted by a level. From a guard, he became the commander of the guards. That position was already considered one in the 5th level. Gu Shijio lost track of her thoughts while looking at Long Sai. The Long Sai right now had completely regarded the Saha world as his home. Step by step, he had made a career for himself, from being a servant when he first came to being a 5th level officer. However, he had been living a very humble life. He had forgotten everything that happened in the Tianwen clan and had come here starting a brand new life of his own. Was such ascendance equivalent to reincarnating and bearing a new life? What had passed had passed. He was no longer the overlord of the Tianwen clan, but a commander of guards in the Saha world. His aim was to be an actual general of the immortals. Gu Shijiao had visited many of the powerful people who had ascended. They had all become mighty immortals, but without memories of the lower bound. Their lives had been carefree up here. On the other hand, she often found herself being on a mission when she visited the upper bound, yet perhaps that is because she regarded the lower bound as her home. But did she? Because, when she was in the lower bound, the sense of loneliness did not diminish at all. In fact, regardless of whether she was in the upper or lower bound, she did not feel like she belonged. She lost track of her thoughts again until Long Sai gave her a toast. Chapter 1888. Long Sai, do you have any news of Yun Yanli? Gu Shijiao was still thinking of the prince since he was the first friend she met in the upper bound. Throughout these 200 years, Yun Yanli had always been beside her. Whenever she went to the upper bound to run errands, he would always be there when she needed him, helping her without complaint. Long Sai heaved a sigh. No. He paused momentarily before continuing, Shijiao, I have a feeling that he has met an unfortunate fate. It was weird for a prince to disappear without reason for so long. Under such circumstance, it was most likely that he had met trouble. Gu Shijiao closed her eyes for a second. He is still alive. Firmament Stone told her that the prince was still alive. It was only uncertain of his location. Long Sai was puzzled. Shijiao, how do you know? I have my ways. All I know is that he is still alive. Long Sai swirled his cup of tea and gave off a soft sigh. If he is alive but not seen, then there are two possibilities: he is trapped and unable to free himself, or he has lost his memories, forgetting that he was once Prince Yun Yanli. I hope that he had lost his memories because that way he will not suffer as much. Supposing he has been trapped, once he manages to escape, seeing his family destroyed would be too much for him to handle. Gu Shijiao sipped her tea and was preoccupied with the question as well. She suddenly remembered something. What about his sister? Long Sai responded. His sister still lives in the old princess palace. She has been living quite a good life, not much different from how she used to live. Gu Shijiao was pleased with that answer. She knew that the princess was called Yun Yanhui. She was 2 years older than Yun Yanli. Bound by blood, the pair of siblings had a close-knit relationship. Yun Yanhui was a genius at spells, and her external abilities are much greater than Yun Yanli's. She was already a mighty immortal when they met. She spent most of her time learning spells and tends to train alone. She would also seldom go outdoors and meet people. A few years ago, Gu Shijiao bumped into her while with Yun Yanli. The princess was not good at socializing and seemed rather naive. When chatting with others, you would only hear her talking about spells. You could say that she was a nerd. During that time, her parents were still around. She was carefree and could be oblivious to her surroundings. However, now that her family members were missing or dead, could she still be so ignorant? Gu Shijiao subconsciously shook her head. She did not understand people who were solely engrossed in books. She did not want to either. In fact, Gu Shijiao was hardly interested in anything lately. She only asked for the sake of Yun Yanli. Learning that she was still living her life under good conditions had eased some of Gu Zijia's worries. Gu Shijiao went on to ask about the daughter of the mighty immortal, Princess Ya. It was obvious that Long Sai was upset at the mentioning of her name. He just said with nonchalance, when the mighty immortal was defeated that year, she was vocal in severing ties with her own father. Over the past couple of days, she has been latching onto the might immortal Yi. He was rather annoyed and did not even allow her to enter the palace. The only reason he did not kick her out was because of their past relationship. Essentially, she had turned into a joke for all 3 bounds, but still remained unabashed. The two continued to chatter over their meal, and gradually the night fell. Suddenly, a streak of colored light went up to the sky, followed by more lights. It was a vivid scene. Long Sai got up. Shijiao, there are fireworks to celebrate the ascendance of a new mighty immortal. Let's have a look. Chapter 1889. Gu Shijio and Long Sai arrived at the streets. Immortals thronged the streets. It was crowded but rather merry. This time, Gu Shijio did not dress up to hide her identity. She did not even put on a mask. She wore a blue dress and a silvery white cape. Although she donned such a simple outfit, she still looked outstanding. Many could not keep their eyes off her. Of course, Long Sai was exceptional as well. He was dressed in white. As he stood beside Gu Shijio, they looked great together. Almost everyone who passed them could not help but stare a little. Long Sai's fame had been built up recently. On the streets, many would greet him. Of course, while greeting him, their gaze lingered on Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio was not shy, but she did not want there to be any misunderstandings. Hence, she used a spell to change her facial features, making it seem more normal instead. With that, Long Sai's friends would not have their gazes linger on her. Instead, they would joke around. "Commander Long, bringing your maidservant out?" Long Sai was obviously appalled by their greeting. "No, she is my friend. Not my maidservant." The blue dress Gu Shijio was wearing was similar to what the junior immortals were wearing. Maidservants would usually dress up this way. Hence, it was just normal for there to be misunderstandings. The people who greeted Long Sai examined Gu Shijio and looked as if they never thought Long Sai would befriend such a junior immortal. They would laugh while uttering, "It was a misunderstanding," and then walk away. "Shijio, how about you can change into something else? I do not want them to misunderstand you." Gu Shijio was in a happy-go-lucky mood. "No need, it's all right." Long Sai did not want to push her and just continued the journey. They were roaming about, and suddenly a man jumped out of nowhere. "Commander Long." The voice was firm. It was a woman in white. Gu Shijio felt that it was too easy to determine one's abilities over there, simply by judging their clothes. The lady must be quite similar to Long Sai's level, a senior immortal. Senior Immortal Yuan. Long Sai frowned slightly, but still greeted her. "Commander Long. You are so insincere. I just invited you over to view the fireworks, and you said you were busy. But now you have come by yourself, and even brought along a maidservant." The lady was pretty and possessed a rather unique style. Long Sai was rather formal. "I really had something to do. And this is my good friend, not my maidservant." "Friend?" The lady raised her eyebrows. She scanned through Gu Shijio and twitched her lips. "Commander Long, since when have you befriended a junior immortal?" Her gaze towards Gu Shijio had a sense of contempt. Long Sai furrowed his brow into a tight knot. "She is not a junior immortal. She is a middle immortal. Please do not guess." "Not a junior immortal?" The lady raised her eyebrows high this time. "She is wearing the clothing of a junior immortal. You judge others by their appearance. I hope you become blind one day." A childlike voice could be heard. Gu Shijio was stunned for a while. As she followed the sound, she saw a child on the back of a person's neck, moving through the crowd and staring them down from above. To be exact, he was staring at the middle immortal. Gu Shijio was good at recognizing him, and the child had an outstanding appearance as well. It was Shinyanma, the son of the Divine Lord and the Great Devil. Chapter 1890. The kid was wearing a silver-colored robe today. The robe was painted with a few light green bamboos. The small robe had no folds on it at all and looked very tidy and neat. The man riding under him looked neat too. His hair was neatly combed, and his collar was tightly tied up. The clothes on his body were in a pale white shade, and it was also very neat. However, this man looked a bit anxious and seemed rather being emotionless. Long Sai had met with this little guy before, so he could definitely recognize him. He bowed to salute him. "Your Highness." Shinyanma was the son of the divine god. His identity was distinguished and noble, and it was technically higher than the status of the Emperor Immortal. Not forgetting that Long Sai was only a grade 5 officer in the Celestial Kingdom. Regardless of his rank, he still had to bow and salute this little prince. Senior Immortal Yuan was not qualified to attend the wedding of the Divine God and the Great Devil, so she had never met Shinyanma. When Shinyanma voiced up, she was quite angry. However, just when she was about to scold him, she saw Long Sai bow to him, so she was stunned. Which prince is he? Long Sai was about to explain, but Shin Yenma interrupted, it has nothing to do with you. His tongue was sharp, but he still sounded cute. Senior Immortal Yuan was stunned by his answer. I am just curious. She looked furious at the moment. I don't care which prince you are. Although you are just a kid, you are rather rude. I wonder if your parents have taught you any manners. Generally, a prince came from a royal family. However, the Yun's royal family had been taken over by the new emperor Immortal Yi Tianli. Yi Tianli was an orphan and had no relatives. He was not even married, so this little prince should not be the relative of the new emperor. He could only be the relatives of the old emperor. Yi Tianli was very kind to the relatives of the old emperor and still allowed them to be addressed with high regard. Shen Yanma, who was now standing in front of her, had a kind of noble aura. This kind of aura could only be present if he came from a noble family. Therefore, she speculated in her heart and felt that Shen Yanma was from the old royal family. Even though the old royal family was still being greeted with respect, they had no actual power. In fact, sometimes even their servants would bully them. Senior Immortal Yuan had never lifted her head in front of the old royal family. When she saw them, she would have to kneel from far away, and she did not even have the qualification to look up. Now that the old royal family was in trouble, she naturally wanted to revenge. Thus, when she saw Shen Yanma, she wanted to give him a lesson. Gu Shijio had also wanted to give Senior Immortal Yuan a lesson for looking down on people. However, now that she had already caused problems for herself, she waited to watch the show. This little man was indeed very tricky. Senior Immortal Yuan was going to be very unfortunate in a while. Shen Nianmo's little feet were swaying in front of the person under him. His small hand held his chin, and his eyes widened as he smiled. There were 2 dimples on this cheek. How dare you to talk to me like this? Senior Immortal Yuan snorted. What is wrong talking to you like this? Do you think you can still act like how you did in the past? A prince who has lost his status still dares to act like a fox. You seem like you need a lesson from someone. Pump. Since you are just a kid, I will not blame you for it. With the few words you have just said, I can actually punish you to the point where even your parents cannot recognize you. Chapter 1891. Senior Immortal Yuan stared at the man who was carrying Shin Niamo. She felt a sense of pity for him and said, based on your attire, I think you are also a senior immortal. How can you let a kid ride on your head? You still act like a slave. Let me tell you, the Yun family is done. There is no benefit for you to follow him like this. The man's face was red, and his mouth was wide open. However, he had a hard time responding. Shinyama was not angry. The dimples on his face were getting deeper though. So you think of me as a member of Yun family? No wonder you are so arrogant. It seems you are also blind. Senior Immortal Yuan was stunned. So you are not from the Yun family? Who are you then? Shinyanma laughed. Why don't you guess? Senior Immortal Yuan looked at Long Sai for clues. Long Sai bit his lips and remained silent. Senior Immortal Yuan looked at Shinyanma again, and suddenly she realized something. She stepped back, and her face looked horrified. Shinyanma looked at Gu Shijio and Long Sai. A smile appeared on his face for a moment while he pointed his finger to Senior Immortal Yuan. Today, I am not going to use my identity to deal with you. You don't have to worry about who I am. If you can beat me, I will not punish you. In fact, I will still ask Long Sai to accompany you to watch the fireworks at night. No one can bother 2 of you. Long Sai never expected that he would be put on the spot and became part of the deal. He added, Your Highness. Shin Yenma put his finger on his lips and hinted him to stop talking. Long Sai naturally had to shut up. Do you agree or disagree? Shen Yenma stared at Senior Immortal Yuan with a pair of big eyes. Senior Immortal Yuan's face was slightly red. She really liked Long Sai, and also wanted to get Long Sai to accompany her to watch the fireworks. However, Long Sai was not interested in her and always rejected her invites. She took a glance at the Gu Shijio, who stood beside Long Sai. She felt very jealous watching them standing side by side. Although she did not know the identity of Shen Yanma, she thought that a 4 or 5-year-old kid should not be too difficult to handle. She could teach this kid a lesson as well. Senior Immortal Yuan was a famous female warrior after all. She was almost as skillful as Long Sai. Therefore, she asked, "Will you hold up your end of the deal?" "Of course," Shen Yanma interrupted her. "But if you lose, you must give this lady 3 kowtows, crawl on the floor around her 3 rounds, and admit that you look down on people like a dog." His little finger was pointing at Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio raised her eyebrows. Was this little man trying to avenge her? Did he not recognize her? If he did, he would know that she was the one who threw a bouquet on his head. Since Senior Immortal Yuan was quite confident that she could win, so she also committed to holding up her end of the deal. "I did not really want to fight with a little kid like you and spoil my reputation. However, you are too arrogant, so I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your parents. To be fair, I will let you make 3 moves first." Before anything started, she suddenly thought of something. "Don't you want to let your servant fight on behalf of you? Or you are trying to partner with him to fight with me?" Shen Yanma laughed his head off. "No, I will fight with you alone and will not ask for any help." He then patted the man under him with his little hand. "Stand here. If you dare to run away, I will make you suffer to death." The man nodded continuously. Chapter 1892. Shen Yanma was satisfied and patted the man's head. "Good. By the way, your hair is so messy. Quickly, go and comb it. Otherwise, I will not feel comfortable looking at it." That man worried. "Okay." Gu Shijio felt like laughing. This little boy was too fussy. It seems he had an obsession with cleanliness as well as obsessive-compulsive disorder. From her perspective, the man's hair was fine. She looked at Shen Yanma again. She always felt that this little boy looked like someone she knew, but she could not remember who that person was at that moment. The scene here naturally alerted many people on the street. They came and surrounded them. The people here obviously could recognize Senior Immortal Yuan. At this moment, they saw her dealing with a little boy, which was very strange. Hence, more onlookers suddenly appeared. At this moment, Senior Immortal Yuan was afraid that everyone would talk bad about her for bullying a little kid, so, she shouted, "Kid, I don't want to fight with you. We can overlook this as long as you bow and apologize to me." Shen Yanma leaped down from his servant's head, and colorful lights were seen from his palm. "Stop talking. Let's fight." And so, the battle began. Some of the onlookers were trying to figure out what happened, so those that were in front started to explain to those behind them. Soon, many people's eyes were focused on Gu Shijio and Long Sai because both of them were the root cause of this fight. Unfortunately, these 2 people started to look bad as they seemed to allow a little kid to sort things out for them. Most of the people here did not recognize Shen Yanma. However, they knew that Senior Immortal Yuan was a very capable fighter. She was ruthless when she fought and never showed mercy. She even got a nickname, Cruel Guanyin. Some of the people present were ready to save the kid. They were waiting with sleeves lifted. If the kid lost the fight, they would quickly go and save him so that he would not be killed. Initially, no one believed that Shen Yanma stood a chance. But after 15 minutes, everyone began to sympathize with Senior Immortal Yuan. She was badly beaten. Some of her hair had been sliced off, while half of her face was purple due to numerous blows, and she was bleeding badly from her mouth. Senior Immortal Yuan regretted to let Shen Yanma start with 3 moves. After the second kick by Shen Yanma, her ribs were almost broken, so she began to fight back before his 3rd move. She was always fierce when she fought. However, she struggled with Shen Yanma. She was definitely on the receiving end. The moves used by Shen Yanma were very practical and extremely fast. He did not waste any time showboating. The people in the crowd with low skills could not even see how Shen Yanma attacked. They saw shadows that spun around Senior Immortal Yuan to the point where even they felt dizzy. Gu Shijio was now a master of martial arts, so she naturally could see the skills of Shen Yanma. She was quite impressed. The little man was a genius. He was so young but able to make such a complicated skill look so easy. This fight did not last for too long. It ended in less than half an hour, and Senior Immortal Yuan had been defeated. A few of her ribs were broken, most of her hair was missing, and her entire face was bruised. 2 of her eyes had been swollen. She might be unrecognizable now. She could not get up from the ground but stared at Shen Yanma in disbelief. "Who are you?" Shen Yanma patted his little hands together to signal that the job was done. "You don't have to know. You are defeated, so you should be punished." Chapter 1893. Senior Immortal Yuan remained silent. The punishment was too shameful. She never imagined that she could be more embarrassed than how she felt at the moment. She tried to get back onto her feet and deliberately confused the people. "Oh yeah, are you saying that I should apologize to this lady? Well, I apologize. Is that okay?" Shen Yanma folded his arms. "You have to give 3 kowtows and admit your mistake. After that, you still need to crawl on the ground for 3 rounds and admit that you look down on people." I have never said so. You must remember it wrong." She denied it. She stood up and stepped back, trying to escape from the scene. However, she almost crashed into someone while walking backward. She quickly looked back and saw Gu Zijia's face. She was shocked. She just saw that Gu Shijio was standing a few meters away. When did she come behind her? She did not even notice it. Gu Shijio did not talk much with her. She took out a recorder spell and switched it on. The conversation between the 2 of them just now was broadcasted, and all the onlooker could listen to it clearly. Gu Zijia's action was worse than slapping Senior Immortal Yuan in the face. She was furious. "You are just a junior immortal. You are not qualified for a kowtow. I am not going to honor it. What can you do?" Among the onlookers, there were friends of Senior Immortal Yuan, and some of them were quite good at martial arts. They also pleaded for Senior Immortal Yuan and asked Shen Yanma to give mercy. They even claimed that although it was not appropriate for Senior Immortal Yuan to talk like this, she was merely stating facts. A junior immortal like Gu Shijio who stood beside Long Sai could easily make people misunderstand that she was a servant. These people surrounded Senior Immortal Yuan, and it gave her some required confidence. She stared at Shen Yanma and fought back. "This kid is too wicked. Even if he has a distinct identity and is a prince of a royal family, he should not ride on a senior immortal, right? He just rode on the shoulders of a senior immortal and behaved very arrogantly." In this continent, it was indeed an insult to ride on someone's shoulders. Senior Immortal Yuan vividly described how Shen Yanma rode on the shoulders of a man and storied the injustice. At this moment, she acted as a just messenger and sharply criticized the incident. "If this senior immortal is your servant, you can let him carry you. However, you actually rode on him and didn't even treat him as a human. The Emperor Immortal today hates people who mistreat servants. And your servant is a senior immortal." She pulled the servant over. "Don't be afraid of him. Even if he has a higher status, it cannot be higher than the Emperor Immortal. You are a senior immortal. Why would you want to be his servant?" Shen Yanma watched her quietly all the while and finally interrupted. "He is not my servant." Shen Yanma then signaled the senior immortal over with his little hand. "Come on, explain to them." The man was apparently afraid of him. He looked at him and then looked at the other people. He suddenly kneeled down in front of Shen Yanma. "Your Highness, I am sinful. When I met your Highness, I was attracted by your beautiful face and wanted to kidnap your Highness. Your Highness caught me and allowed me to be your servant. It's all under my own willingness to repay for my sin." The onlookers were speechless. Senior Immortal Yuan was speechless too. So this man was a kidnapper who wanted to abduct the kid. However, he never expected that this kid would catch him and decided to pay for his sin. This matter was worse than treating a senior immortal as a servant. Chapter 1894. Someone in the crowd recognized that this man was a skilled kidnapper. He is Prince Fenglang. Prince Fenglang, a well-known kidnapper in the Saha world, specialized in abducting immortal children. He was a wanted man in the Saha world with his portrait pasted on the walls of many corners. However, this man was very skilled and always changed his appearance, making him unrecognizable. The only thing he could not change was his voice sounded very strange, hence why he hardly spoke and always acted dumb. He had apparently suffered a lot of under Shinyenma, so he did not even dare to escape. When the story developed to this moment, no one wanted to seek justice for Prince Fenglang anymore. Instead, countless people were staring at Shinyenma, wondering what had he done and about his true identity. Who was this kid who could catch Prince Fenglang to the point where he did not even dare to escape? Senior Immortal Yuan was also stunned. She involuntarily took 2 steps back. Well, I did not recognize that this person is a kidnapper. However, I am also trying to get justice. She glanced at Gu Shijio again. Although it was my mistake, I think it is sufficient for me to apologize. If I kowtow to her, I am afraid that she would not deserve it. Gu Shijio usually did not like to talk much, so at this moment, she did not plan to say too much either. She merely raised her eyebrows slightly and asked, "How can a person like this be a senior immortal? Anyway, I don't need someone like you to give me a kowtow. You are not qualified." As she finished speaking, she lifted her sleeve and a colorful light emerged and covered Senior Immortal Yuan. Senior Immortal Yuan screamed momentarily, and the light carried her up into the sky. Everyone was stunned. This was not a skill that could be issued by a junior immortal. Even a higher-ranked person might not be able to do it. Who is she? How could she have such a strong skill? Numerous eyes fell on Gu Shijio, but Gu Shijio was too lazy to entertain them. She casually said to Long Sai, "Instructor Long, let's go." She then turned and was about to go, but her sleeve was tugged by a small hand. "Big sister, wait." Gu Shijio looked down at the little hand that was pulling her sleeve. She paused and asked, "Prince Nyenma, do you have anything else?" It turned out he was the son of the divine god and the great devil. Everyone was shocked and quickly kneeled and bowed to him. The divine god and the great devil were the most influential people in this continent. The identity of their child was definitely the noblest one. It was even nobler than the Emperor Immortal. Shin Yenma slightly frowned. The reason why he did not want to reveal his identity was that these people were too troublesome. They liked to kneel and bow to him, which brought trouble to him. He preferred to have a carefree life. His eyes looked at Gu Shijio in a rather strange manner. He never liked any woman other than his mother. However, the woman in front of him gave him a very similar feeling. He could not bear to see her being insulted and wanted to help her. He even felt uncomfortable when he saw her stand beside Long Sai. He was still young and did not understand this strange feeling. Subconsciously, he just wanted to split Gu Shijio and Long Sai. When he saw Gu Shijio looking at him, he blinked. "Elder sister, you can actually recognize me, that's great. I got lost, can you send me home?" You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.